All right. We'll call the meeting to order here of the Grandview Heights School Board of Education. Beth, would you please call the roll?
Mr. BOE.
Present.
Mrs. Gebhardt.
Here.
Mr. Gousset.
Here.
Mrs. Matney.
Here.
And Ms. Wassmuth.
Here.
Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Would that be a motion for all three of them?
Yes.
Any discussion? Beth, could you call the roll?
Mr. BOE.
Yes.
Mrs. Gebhardt.
Aye.
Mr. Gousset.
Aye.
Mrs. Matney.
Aye.
And Ms. Wassmuth.
Aye.
Next on the agenda, we have recognitions. Andy?
At this time, we would, well, do you want to do recognition of guests and public?
We can go ahead with the public. Did you have anybody else you want to recognize?
No.
No, okay, all right. The first part. threw
Okay,
me
fair
off.
enough, sorry.
All right. So we will move to the hearing of the public. This is something we do at every board meeting. I'm glad that the public is here, and we like to hear any views that you have. We would invite anyone who'd like to speak that you are able to do it now or before we get to a topic. We also, if you do like to speak, come up and speak at the microphone and state your name and address. We ask that you keep your comments to under 5 minutes. Not mention anyone in particular by name of the student or a parent or a teacher. And you'd be coming to address the board. We will listen to you, but we would not engage in dialogue or answer questions. If there is something that you have that would require more of a dialogue, feel free to reach out and we could set up a meeting to talk to Superintendent Culp or myself or Beth. So at this point, is there anybody who would like to come and address the board? Welcome.
Dawn, can you hear? Dawn Strong, 1230 Glen Avenue. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I am here to suggest that it's time to make our school lunch program a priority to our district. School lunches are critical to our students' health and are interwoven with academic performance. My name is Dawn Strong, and I'm a parent of a 4th grader at Larson. Beyond my roles as wife and as a mother, I am a certified registered nurse anesthetist. I have a bachelor and master's degree in nursing, as well as a bachelor's degree in nutrition. My husband, Brandon, and I have been a part of the Grandview community for 13 years, and it was in 2018 when our son, Declan, who was in the 1st grade, that I embarked on my journey to improve the school lunch program. My initial steps included attending every wellness committee meeting for an entire academic year. I listened and learned about the wonderful things that our district does for the physical, social, and mental well-being of our students. I also noticed that the school lunch program was often in the middle or at the end of the agenda, which I found surprising, as I believe what we feed our children is one of, if not, the most important thing that we do on a daily basis. COVID-19 has made an impact on all of our lives, without question, and our district did the best it could with the school lunches. But it is now March 2022, and life is starting to resemble some form of normalcy. We need to move forward in our food service department in all 3 of our schools, especially at Stevenson, because the food choices our young children have and make at a young age impact their food choices as they grow. Our food service website says our lunches are fresh, delicious, nutritious. There are many variables when looking at food to determine if it's healthy: sugar, calories, protein, and sodium, to just name a few. I chose to look at sodium content at some of the lunches offered at Larson, as that is where Declan attends. According to the 2020-2025 USDA dietary guidelines, children 5 to 8 years old should limit their daily sodium intake to 1,500 milligrams, 9 to 13 years, 1,800 milligrams, and adolescents 2,300 milligrams. A high sodium diet can lead to hypertension, and according to the CDC, about 1 in 6 children ages 8 to 17 has raised blood pressure. Here are a few examples of lunches at Larson that are currently on the menu and were also on the menu prior to COVID-19. Bosco sticks, baked beans, and milk, 43% of the daily recommended sodium intake. Chicken poppers, mashed potatoes, and milk, 59% of the daily recommended sodium intake for our children. Hot dog on a bun, baked beans, and milk, 74% of the daily recommended sodium intake. These numbers are somewhat shocking. The children can choose an Uncrustable or chef salad, but these are the hot menu choices for my child, for your child, any parent's child in this room tonight, or someone who has a child at Larson. These menu choices, I believe, miss the mark of fresh, delicious, nutritious. The Grandview Heights School Academic Prospectus is a publication that speaks to many of the amazing aspects of our schools. There is no doubt that we are one of, if not the best district in this state. I would like to take a moment to read a few things from page 15. We believe that our food and nutrition services are an integral part of our K-12 Wellness for Life curriculum. Our wellness team views the cafeteria as a learning lab for life. This environment is where students will put theory into practice. It goes on to say the learning objective for our students within the context of the cafeteria learning lab is, I can evaluate and select foods that will nourish my body, mind, and spirit. This is a great publication, but if we are going to say it, if we are going to print it, then we need to do it. And do it for all of our schools. You do not need a nutrition degree, such as I have, to look at the menu that is offered at our schools and recognize that we are not living up to our wellness standards. We hold our children accountable, and it is time that we do that to ourselves. To most of you on the board, my faith and passion for this cause is not new. In the past, I have stated that there are others like me in this community, and tonight many of them are here, and I would like them to stand if they wish to. Or perhaps you have received emails from them. A group of mothers recently joined forces and formed the Facebook page, Champions for Healthy School Food. Currently, we have 93 members, and we continue to grow. 93 community members who have innovative ideas on how to improve our school lunch program. 93 community members with different dietary choices. We are here, we are passionate, we want our voices to be heard, but most of all, we want to help. We have salad bars in all 3 of our schools, which is a fantastic way to offer fresh fruits and vegetables to our students and staff. Please get them out in all of our buildings. We could reconnect with Romeo's Pizza, bring them back into our schools. Fresh hot pizza versus a frozen is a simple improvement. Serve lunch outside when the weather gets nice to help with distancing. An alternative dairy beverage for those who are lactose intolerant. A real peanut butter and jelly sandwich. COVID-19 presents challenges, but we all know it is here to stay. It cannot define what our school lunches look like. We can be creative. We can make small changes now as we strive towards greater changes. The future is bright in Grandview. We are standing in this beautiful building with a beautiful new kitchen at our disposal. A kitchen where we can actually make fresh, delicious, and nutritious food for all of our students and staff. I love Grandview. I love our schools and the teachers that we are so fortunate to have. But most of all, I love our children. I will continue to be passionate for their food choices. And I know that together as a community and a district, we can unite and make the school lunch program a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Come on up.
My name is Nina Brown, 865 Gladden Road. I am a senior at Grandview Heights High School and the student leader of the Bobcat Anti-Racism Collective. Today, I would like to share my continuous support for the anti-racism resolution in our school district. I have noticed in my earlier years that the diversity in what I was being taught was limited. Mass genocides and erasure of entire groups of people were barely mentioned. It was in my own relearning of history that I became very interested in our past because of the complexity in it. I am proud to live in a school system that promotes a diverse and holistic curriculum, even in a time when honesty in education is under attack across the country. Back of my earring.
Maggie Hurley, 1899 West 3rd Avenue. I'm a junior here and a leader of the Bobcat Anti-Racism Collective. In light of the recent passing of House Bill 327, I'm especially thankful to be in a school system that has sustained its support for honesty in education. As a white student, I'm inspired to think critically and incite change when taught about all aspects of our history. I do not feel targeted or guilty. Thank you for your time.
Maggie, thank you. Appreciate your coming. Come on up. Welcome.
Heidi McAfee. I'm at 1334 Arlington Avenue. I'm here to show my support for making our school lunches healthier. Dawn did an amazing job. I'm not really sure what else I can say, except I did leave copies of the 2019 survey, food service survey that we did for students and parents. It's pretty telling. We had an amazing tour of the new kitchen today at the middle school, high school, and to say I was blown away would be an understatement. It's beautiful, and hopefully there's an invite for several people in the community to get a chance to see the new kitchen. And I really do think that we can maybe live up to those perspectives of the what is it, the food lab for life. I mean, that's the perfect place for it. The conversation we had with the food service director was also very, I would say, insightful. We seem to have similar goals, and so we look forward to working with them on those goals in the coming year. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Megan Hada, 1900 West 3rd Avenue. I didn't prepare a formal comment. I just simply wanted to ask that as we're coming out of COVID restrictions and planning for the next school year and settling into this beautiful new kitchen, that we continue to consider the food program and approach it with a review and look for opportunities for improvement and assess, is there space for improvement? Is there space for expansion of what's going? And of course there's barriers, and that is well understood, and some are very fixed. I understand, staffing and budget and some of the government restrictions. But, within those barriers, if there continues to be consideration for improvements and change, and maybe it's not immediate, but in the 3 years or the 5 years, I fully believe that every student, staff, and our administration bring their very best to our district, and I've seen across many of our services and our programming that we are at a very high standard, and I just want to feel confident that the foods and the nutritional choices that we provide to our students and our staff in our buildings are also at the very best that we can offer in that time. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sophia Moore, 1409 Haynes Avenue. I have 2 boys in the Grandview School District, the 6th grader and a 3rd grader. I would like to say this is my 2nd board meeting. Both have been this year. And what I appreciate about this is both have been in this beautiful new building. And I think the reason I mention that is we decided as a community that it would have been easier to say, the kids are fine, we're doing well, nothing's broken, and to continue it, but we didn't. We said, we have to think of things differently. We have to think about teaching differently and how we talk about our kids. And I think we've done a great job of that, and it's so great to see that here. However, one thing that I think we haven't thought differently about is our food choices, as had already been mentioned. Is, again, it would be really easy to say the kids aren't going to choose healthier food choices. Nothing's broken, the kids are fine. But I would challenge all of us and this board to rethink how could we actually be better, because that is exactly what we did a couple of years ago when we thought about this school. We knew things were okay, but we also knew things could be better. And I would say the exact same thing about the food. Yes, the kids might be choosing it. Yes, my child does love the French toast sticks, don't get me wrong. But I also know that if there were other choices, we could be better. And I really challenge all of us to really think about our options and think about how we could be better and not only be a leader in what we have here today, but also be a leader holistically in how we think about our children and rethink of how we think about our food. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Come on up.
I'm going to waller through this. Hi, I'm Devin Albate, also here in support of the food program possible changes that have been mentioned, not specifically, but the idea of considering changes. I live at 1316 Elmwood Avenue, and I have 3 kids in the district, and I was also fortunate enough to grow up here. So I've been in the Grandview schools for a long time at different levels and capacities, and I know how wonderful they are. COVID has brought, a bunch of different challenges, and I think it's kind of allowed everyone to reconsider and reevaluate what's important to us and what's important for our kids long-term, holistically. Obviously, we're interested in their academic success, how well they perform maybe on the sports fields and courts. But I think as we kind of consider that we are what we eat, and healthy habits are something that will benefit our kids for the long haul, and when we consider how much discussion there is going around kind of mental health and well-being, food and nutrition does impact mental health, just for the immediate future and for the long haul. So when we're considering all of the conversations around that and the whole child, I think we would be remiss to ignore the impact of nutrition on overall health and performance. I do want to say in 2017, I actually got together with a couple of moms and I did send an email. I did not really follow through with it, but I sent an email out to a board member and some administrative members stating that I was interested in looking at and helping the schools look at healthier, more locally sourced options for food. I referenced other schools' lunch programs in 2017 that I felt were progressive and showed promise, and I was sent to the Wellness Committee, told that teachers had toured various initiatives, including the schools I mentioned, and I was told that we were working to integrate a similar framework and strategies. Currently, the menu appears to look exactly the same as it did in 2017, or very similar. I didn't, get out and cross-reference completely, but it looks very similar. And I know we've had COVID in the midst of it, but I'm suggesting or hoping that we can kind of come back to look at some of the changes that were put into place by parents, kind of pushing the way when I didn't continue on, because I felt like the Wellness Committee looked like a little bit of it didn't look like the lunch program specifically was going to be a highlight. And honestly, I was a little deterred from joining the Wellness Committee because that was where my passion was the lunch program. Other parents persevered, championed for Ohio Days, secured grants for salad bars. There were things that were happening and COVID hit and the momentum was kind of, lost. So I think it's time to relook at it. I know that simple, sustainable changes can be put into place, highlighting nutrient-dense foods, whole foods, things that will impact our young minds and emotional well-being, let alone the physical well-being. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have models out there, and hopefully then we can serve as a progressive model for other schools to implement something that's sustainable and that can help society, kids as a whole, and make an impact. I don't think we need to settle with what's been done for years and years, or settle for that. So thank you very much. That's it.
Come on up.
Hi, I'm Austin Carter, 1203 Westwood. My wife, Ellie, would be here. She had every intention of it, but my 4-year-old decided to melt into a small puddle at about 6:45, so
It's fair.
she's right here with me. I support a healthier school lunch program at Grandview Schools and encourage the board to take necessary actions to improve it. I believe that all children deserve access to healthy lunch options. It's an important part of growing into a healthy adult. I've been surprised by the relatively poor quality of school lunches at Stevenson Elementary. The lunches contain too much low-grade, unhealthy food, and the menu is repetitive. I oftentimes ask myself, would I eat this? And the answer is oftentimes no. As a result, we usually pack a healthier lunch option. Unfortunately, this option isn't available for many students. I do not wish this criticism to reflect poorly on the staff, administrators, and volunteers who deliver the school lunch program. These servants are doing the best they can in a difficult situation. Resources are tight, pandemic-induced supply chain problems persist, staff shortages continue, facilities are outdated, and probably many other factors I know nothing about. In short, they need help, so please help them. The writer, Michael Pollan, author of In Defense of Food, 2008 book, which is really quite good if you get the chance, offers advice on how to eat to achieve maximum health. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I do not believe that Stevenson Elementary School's lunches pass this test. Eat food. Much of what is served at lunch is processed food. Mr. Pollan's tip, don't eat anything that your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. Not too much. I understand that for many children, school lunch is their best source of calories, and that sugary and fatty foods enable the school to meet this important requirement on a budget. However, I believe that it is possible to meet this caloric requirement with healthy foods, although it will take both time and money to do so. Mostly plants. I sometimes struggle to find a vegetable on the menu and almost no fresh vegetables. Mr. Pollan says, there's an incontrovertible but boring evidence that eating your fruits and vegetables is probably the best thing you can do for preventing cancer, for weight control, for diabetes, for all the different diseases that now afflict us. I understand that there are many competing priorities in a school district, and I do not envy the difficult job that the school board has weighing these priorities and balancing resources, etc. I simply think that we can do much better when it comes to providing healthy school lunches for our children, and I support increasing resources to do so. Mr. Pollan also says, quote, you're going to have to spend either more time or more money, and perhaps a little bit of both. It's really a question of priorities. So thank you for attention, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Austin. Anybody else like to speak now? Welcome, come on up.
I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. Oh, Lord. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Van Osdol of 1254 West First Avenue. I am a Grandview Heights parent, alumni, taxpayer, resident, and employee in the food services department of this district. I'm speaking tonight using the combined knowledge gained as each of those. Through social media less than a week ago, I learned of a group referring to themselves as the GH Healthy School Lunch Initiative. I believe they have since changed names or, yeah. It was their first public post, and it specifically solicited people to contact the board with their group's requests. It always piques my interest when a small private group attempts to alter the decisions of that of a large public group already has in place. So I joined the group and was immediately struck by the inability to discern in their verbiage a clear request of something actually healthy. Some example requests I saw: wraps, snacks, Ohio Days, which are simply foods that had been touched in some capacity in the state of Ohio and consisted primarily of food we were already serving and still do serve. Pizza, grab and go, soup, salad bar. All three schools had already been offering salads prior to any of this. Not a single specifically healthy item in that list. It is probable that interested parents are not truly aware of what we do, why we do it, what the rules we are governed by, and what consistently shifting tangents we must overcome. The department has turned on a dime so many times in the last 2 years I cannot even count them. But we always found a way to get the kids their nutritious lunches. I hope I can clear up some misconceptions that I read on the group's posts. Adding fresh fruits and vegetables were listed in the request, however, those have always been and will always be on our menus. Several members mentioned that they would not be interested in taking a job within the department as the, quote, pay is pretty bad. Since it's public knowledge, I can tell you I started in the $12 range almost 8 years ago. I am now in the $15 range with no insurance. A new hire with kitchen experience would most likely start with higher pay than I currently make. I also saw a group member and an admin that said, quote, we likely need an overhaul on the entire process. I bet there are more efficient ways to do some of the work than the current team is doing. I can promise you that no one can break down a case of melon, pineapple, kiwi, peppers, celery, cucumbers, kale, or oranges faster or more efficiently than I can. Because I have to. Because I serve them. I don't have time not to. While the masking policy changed, our meal services have not. RLS meals still require bagging and thus prepackaged foods. That is a smart workaround, not a norm of our department. Styrofoam, again, not a norm. We switched out for compostable and recyclable years ago. Are we happily using anything, food or service related, that we can find in these supply issue times? Absolutely. Bexley and Grandville as models. I've seen their menus. I emailed them to you. And the photos. We serve the same food from the same vendors. The original high school not having a commercial kitchen. Not true. It did. Salad bars not being used. Not true. They are still and have been in 2 of the 3 buildings. Hummus and parfaits being gone. No. They're still available in the high school, although I do let the kids assemble the parfaits themselves. We may or may not be moving on from a pandemic, but there are other issues at hand. There has not been a decision on the waiver for next year. While we have plans in place for either direction, it does greatly affect the look of meal service in all 3 buildings. We will also be changing a kitchen next year. That will affect the look of the meal service in 2 of the buildings. What it won't affect is us continuing to offer nutritious meals that include whole grains and a variety of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. Parents should be confident in us, especially now, after the last 2 years when we went from being possibly let go, to me bringing food to your doorstep, to a waiver that tripled our numbers, and now to this meeting. Somewhere in there, we even managed to get a completely different kitchen up and running. In closing, I will say we have a lot of needs to be met in all three. Buildings have different needs, different kitchens, different students, different tastes that are not entirely the same. Within them, we must find balance. Perception is tricky. A salad bar sounds very healthy till you see a child with 3 servings of iceberg lettuce, 1 cup of black olives, and enough ranch dressing to choke a goat. Pizza by any other name is still pizza. We truly encourage people to come watch a meal service at any building. You will see how well cared for your kids actually are by us. Volunteers, yes, please. You should see what damage can be done to a salad bar in only 10 minutes. If in fact an actual majority of parents and taxpayers wish to change our program to any version that is more labor intensive, I hope the school chooses to make our positions have benefits and be full-time and invest in us as we have invested in the school and the students. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody, for good comments tonight. A lot to think about. We don't have anything specifically on the agenda today about food service, but a lot to think about. We actually also got quite a few emails from concerned parents as well, so we'll take that under advisement as well. Andy, I invite you if you wanted to say any words here before we move on.
Well, I just thank the community for coming out and sharing their views. I think you gave great insights. I think Alyssa, who does have a unique perspective, both in terms of being a community member, a mom, as well as working in the kitchen. I think generally, from my perspective at least, although my perspective isn't always right, but from my perspective, there's a lot more shared vision and values than there aren't. And so I am optimistic about many of the changes that we had made and had implemented. And and this isn't an excuse, I'm hesitant to even say it, but it's true. Our hand was a little forced with COVID and how we had to deliver food. And so the momentum that we did have was challenged. However, I know Kyle and Alyssa and the community members that spoke really deeply care about healthy, scratch, nutritious food choices, and I'm very optimistic about the future of Grandview Food Services. I know I've talked with Kyle regularly, and I'm again very optimistic about where we're headed and where we're going, and there is room for improvement, by the way. One of the speakers, I'm sorry, I don't remember which, said we should be in a mindset of we can always get better. And certainly that is a mindset that I have as your superintendent in every facet of our school organization, whether it's facilities, whether it's how we deliver instructional content, how we measure progress in learning, how we authentically assess where a student is individually and try and grow them as far and fast as we can. And that also applies to the food service program.
Can I just ask a question? I know we don't have something on our agenda, so it's, we're rolling with it. Kyle did present to us relatively recently. I don't know how long ago that was. Would we be able, because I know, I have a number of questions about, I know there was a number of initiatives happening before COVID came. There was a lot of reaction to COVID that was absolutely necessary. And then, so sort of like a status. I'm just wondering if there might be another meeting in the near future where we might be able to basically update again and talk about like what we were doing, what the status was then, how COVID impacted it, what the status is now, what our plan is moving forward, and just talking about that sort of collectively. And also, there's the impact of the federal school lunch and school breakfast programs and its requirements and its funding. But there was that like $10,000. It was right before Kevin and I joined the board. That was sort of like added for school food, and sort of I want to understand a little bit more about that and how it plays into that. And So, again, we might not be prepared right now, but maybe,
I think it's a great idea. I would just add, I think an important evaluation, as part of that presentation, I'd be very interested in, the staffing outlay by building currently, and then correspondingly over winter break, just less than a year from now, and we have a shared kitchen, what that staffing capital outlay looks like then, and what your analysis of the pros and cons of that will be in terms of food choices and so on and so forth, as part of that presentation.
We can work with you on the timing of when we'd be ready to do that, which future meeting. So, great. Thank you, everyone. If you're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, especially I think we have a good presentation coming up, but feel free to leave. We won't be offended. Next on the agenda, we do have a presentation on experiential learning.
Dr. Gage and his team.
Welcome.
Thanks. Quint Gage, 1138 Westwood.
Students were very nervous that they were going to have to recite their.
So, in all honesty, I had kind of thought about coming in and kind of piggybacking on Stevenson's social emotional learning, on Madeline's social emotional learning, but then we decided you guys are probably tired of hearing about social emotional learning, as important as it is, and we are spending a lot of time doing that. But another part of our CIP is experiential learning, and we have some fantastic guest speakers here today to help kind of flesh that out for you so you can understand some of the exciting stuff that's happening, not only at Larson Middle School, but also at Stevenson. So I have Christy Jump here, who is our K-5 librarian, to kind of introduce the crowd here. So, Christy.
Well, thanks, Dr. Gage. Thank you for hosting the kids this evening. They're super excited, but a little nervous also. And I want to start off by saying that I met Jessica Fields 5 years ago at a PD, and when you hired her, you hit the jackpot, and so did the kids. She is the real deal, and she loves our kids to pieces and would do anything for them.
Can we have her stand up?
Yeah, I know, I do.
Come on, Jessica.
Listen, you have to, I know. She wanted me to rehearse what I was going to say, because I think I make her nervous or something, because she doesn't know what's going to come out of my mouth. But I did not want to rehearse that in front of her. But the kids love Mrs. Fields. So 5 years ago, I met Jessica at a PD. She was a keynote speaker. She was already talking about 21st century future-ready libraries for the students. And fast forward 5 years now, that was in New Albany. Now she's in Grandview, and she's putting her money where her mouth is. And the kids have been rocking it in the library. And some of them are here to talk about different opportunities in the library, especially if you've heard about STEAM. In the past, it's been called STEM, but we've added the A to incorporate art, because art is a big part of our day. And the kids come once a week to the library, and they get the opportunity to do lots of hands-on activities along with practice their soft skills. So I'm going to introduce Emmy Williamson. She's going to talk first.
One of my favorite STEM centers is the penny boat, where you build a tin-foil boat, and then there's a paper where you write your prediction of how many pennies you can put on it, and then you put the boat in this tub of water, and you put as many pennies as you can, and then you put how many pennies you put on on the paper. And one of my other favorite STEM centers is the center where you like take blocks and popsicle sticks and build a bridge and put as many books as you can on top. And then for my third station is that you take 2 cups and put a pencil in the middle, and then you fold the paper, and then you fold a piece of paper and try to keep as many pennies as you can on top of it.
And let me stay up here for just a second. I have to share one other thing. So I'm between multiple buildings, and I'll get these texts from teachers with these questions. And I'm working with teachers, so I didn't see my phone, and I get this message back that says, "Don't worry about it. Emmy figured it out." And it was all about Google Slides, and she gave the whole class a solution, right, to the problem. Nice job. Okay, thank you, Emmy. So I believe that Gus is going to do something really amazing in his life, and I'm excited for him to present some of his experiences in 3rd grade.
So, like Mrs. Fields said, my name is Augustus, and we didn't get a picture of it, but there used to be a station called the Lego Challenge, and I think that was a big example of perseverance because it's a little station where you build up Legos on top of Legos, and then you drop it from the table that you're on. If none of the Legos break off, you can do it from a bookshelf, and then after many levels, you go up to the tallest bookshelf, and if it doesn't break with one piece, then you add like at least like the limit at first, I believe, is like 10, and then your second one is 20 since you did the challenge. And then another one of the stations that we managed to get on the screen was the block challenge. And I was thinking that this was a very big thing of teamwork because at first it shows that I was working by myself. And it didn't work out so well. So I teamed up with a partner, and his name was Sammy Phillips. And I thought we made really good teamwork, and we managed to get at least 19 books onto the little bridge.
Wow.
It's amazing.
And one last thing that we didn't really practice during the run-through is the rainbow milk section, which I thought was a very big thing of creativity. Because you like predict what the rainbow milk will look like, and then you can add like yellow, red, a green, and a blue, and then you mix some all together with, I believe, soap and water, and then I think it might be soap milk or soap and water. I'm not too sure. But in the end, you can come up with like very creative designs. Like last time I library, I actually saw one of the rainbow milk tests, and I saw lots of swirls of red and blue and green. And I really think you can be creative in your own way with the rainbow milk.
Awesome.
Awesome. Hold on a second here. Augustus.
Hey, Gus. Come back here, buddy.
Just real quick. What was your last name?
Ritzman.
It's very nice to meet you. You did a fabulous job.
Thanks.
You have a great personality and disposition, and I love your confidence. What grade did you say you were in?
3rd.
Great job.
Thanks, Gus. Good job, Gus. So when the kids are at Stevenson, we wanted to immerse them into STEAM activities, but then when they go to the middle school, they wanted to keep going. And so between Jessica and myself, we decided to incorporate some STEAM activities up there, along with the applied digital skills. So when the 4th and 5th graders are up at the middle school, not only are they still participating in the STEAM challenges, but now you can see on the left-hand side that they do everything from digital citizenship, which is ongoing forever, to typing, to WeVideo, to lots of different interactive things. So they have a board that they can choose from, which is awesome for them because they get a choice. So they still have the opportunity to follow through with the STEAM activities since it's interactive and it makes them future ready. Now we have May, who's in 4th grade, who's going to talk about her faves.
Well, one of my favorite activities in STEAM was the Artemis Challenge. So Artemis is a challenge where, so we're going back to the moon in 24, and we want to be able to live on the moon. So me, Delaney, and Ella teamed up to build a little moon base where people would be able to live on the moon. Another challenge I enjoyed was the Lego drop challenge where me and Delaney built a Lego structure and then we tried to drop it from 3 different levels and you had to keep it from breaking.
Now, one thing that you don't know that she didn't share is May turned 10 yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Great job. Great job.
And next we have Ben.
What I wanted to talk about is applied digital skills, how whenever you go up to there, it gives you a video each step by step, how to make it 3 steps at a time. And once you're done with it, it gives you a quiz to make sure you're actually listening. And then down at the bottom, the infographic, it's really good in the 21st century since you can use it and just share it to people instead of having to share a piece of paper to other people.
Excellent. Great job.
I've really appreciated all the hard work that Christy has put in, and the students, they'll see me in the hallway and they typically say, "Hey, Miss Jump." And I'm like, "Yeah," I just answer to that at this point. And they're like, "Is it library day?" Like, it's one of the things they look forward to. So you know you're onto something when you're able to tie it to standards, you have engagement, and you have excitement. But my job is also to take the CIP and work interdisciplinary. So the Media Center is one little component of that. And what I really like, and I was, this is me geeking out on the CIP, is this idea of experiential learning. If you look at what a 21st century learning coach's role is, that is it. So 2 things I want to talk about in general is for Objective 1.1, we have worked with teachers on looking at their instruction as a framework through workshop modeling. So basically, instead of like linear learning, we know it doesn't happen that way. We kind of tip it on its side. And we're able to really personalize the instruction for students with different modalities, experiences, groupings. The other thing I like about this CIP this year is it builds on this work that we've been doing for the past 3 years that I've been here. So we have had a lot of work with Project Zero, and what I really appreciate about the thinking routines in relation to experiential learning is the focus is not on the what, the content, that's important. It's on how the students think about the content and what they do about that. So we just wanted to highlight a few things outside the Media Center. So what we're going to share are 3 examples of students doing. So experiential learning, you can read a lot about it, but at the heart, it's students doing. And here it says examples may be products, role play, giving a presentation, problem solving, playing a game. But the facet is really about the process. So the idea here is that the product is great, and these kids produce really awesome stuff, but the experience of the process is where they gain the most 21st century learning skills. So I had the pleasure of working with fourth grade. They have taken on a workshop model for reading and writing units of study. So we've done a lot of PD with them this year. That was nice because I was a high school English teacher in Olentangy with Kevin. And so I felt right at home here, helping them create scenarios for students. And so they were able to incorporate their ELA research, collaborate and practice, and then basically came into the library with a green screen and created basically a Hamilton mini research on how the Revolutionary War impacted our country. So it was awesome. You would see wigs and things flying down the fourth grade hallway. But the teachers, every time I saw them, they're like, this is great. And that brings me joy too, because it has been a hard year for teachers, and they are finding joy in it as much as the students are. The other thing that we see, and I was walking down the sixth grade hallway, and they're like, Miss Fields, can you help us with this locker combination? I'm like, math is not going to be my expertise. So I dove into this a little bit, and come to find out, Nicole Wainscott, she's a sixth grade math teacher. She had PD with John Lee about 5 years ago, and it's about creating scenarios in which any student can join in the experience. So we're really talking high ceilings, low floors for learning, but it allows for you to personalize that. And again, both the fourth grade project and when the students were in the sixth grade hallway for this, it was just buzzing. Like you couldn't pull them away to even go to recess. You couldn't pull them to go to lunch. They're like, we're gonna figure this out. So those hallways are definitely buzzing, but one of my favorite teachers, who is always doing stuff, is Lena Williamson, and she's gonna present a project she just did.
Your daughter did fabulous, by the way.
Thanks, thank you. So density is a 7th grade standard, and density is a natural bridge between our chemistry unit, where we talk about physical properties and periodic properties, and our climate unit that we just started, relationships between air pressure and air density in our atmosphere. So students need to be able to differentiate between mass and volume and determine density and do calculations. And then we apply Charles' law. Temperature rises, volume rises, density goes down, and our essential question is, why do hot air balloons fly? So we had the best day. I've done a project for a long time, and Friday was perfect. It has to be cold, and the kids can tell you why it has to be cooler. They worked as a team of 3 or 4. They had to follow a pattern, they had to cut, they had to measure, they had to assemble, and really work together. We had one group that said their air balloon went to the stratosphere, and I think it was like a little dot way up in the sky. And some of them go really, really far. So they are biodegradable, so if you see any, they get a small prize if they show me a picture of them recycling it. But if you, so most of them got recycled, but there's a couple up in trees. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. The kids love it, and really puts their learning hands-on.
Lena, next year at this time when you do that, can I ask you a favor? Yeah. Would you invite me so I can come out and watch? For sure, yeah. Selfishly, please.
Yeah, we'll do.
So I hope you enjoyed that. It was a little, yeah, it was great. So I want to thank everyone for coming and helping me with my presentation. It made my job a lot easier, and hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing kind of what we're doing at the middle school and at the elementary school. Have any questions?
I just had one comment, if I may. Christy, I just want to thank you also. Jessica, of course, thank you for your leadership and process. But Christy, your work with kids and your passion for kids and your ability to make connections with all kids is part of what makes this work. And I just want to thank you and mention that we recognize that you have a unique ability in fostering those meaningful relationships with students and all students, and that's part of what makes this magic work. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. That means a lot.
Mentioned that my son, who's about to get his master's this year, started out in Mrs. Jump's kindergarten classroom in 2005. So set him on the right path. He's thriving. And he has a girlfriend, so.
His girlfriend. Okay, Grandpa.
Thank you, Quint, and the whole team. This is
Thank you, Quint. Great.
A lot of learning so far today, and not a lot of voting so far. Next on the agenda, we have the superintendent's report.
I'm just going to say a couple quick things. I'm not going to read this to you. The first thing I'm going to say is a heartfelt congratulations to Robert Brown. Robert, on tonight's agenda, is scheduled to be Dr. Madeline Partlow's replacement. And while it is an extreme loss, I know for him and for us, in terms of his leadership at Grandview Heights High School, it is also a tremendous gain in different and unique ways, K-12, and his leadership will continue. And, I had one parent say to me when I was at the city council meeting the following: I'm really sad that we're losing Rob as the high school principal. However, I'm really, really happy for the students that he will now serve in families K-12. You made the right decision, Andy, which I don't hear all the time. So congratulations, Rob. And then secondly, I mentioned this at the last board meeting, Dr. Partlow, just thank you for your 6 years of just tremendous leadership and work. It's hard to fathom today, as we work in this district together, what it was like when you took over 6 years ago, because it is literally done a 180. We were spending 50% of our time in litigation, literally, on a monthly basis. And so the transformation, not just in that area, but yes, in that area, but also just in terms of programmatically. Rob has big shoes to fill. I know he'll do a great job, but thanks to you and for the last 6 years, really appreciate it on behalf of the board and all of our staff. You're going to be tremendously missed. That's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Andy. We can move on also to the construction progress update, and Jay Tadina.
Jay, is this a typical board meeting in construction? Does it look like this?
No. I don't remember. From the last 2 years, every single one's been different. So, but always thanks for having me. And actually, last week went to a conference called the Association for Learning Environments with Perkins and Will, and a lot of the conversation was design around experiential learning and interdisciplinary learning of the spaces. And to hear a board meeting about things that people are talking about means that this district's at the forefront and doing the right thing. So that's pretty cool to see, and glad to be a part of it. But construction-wise, February was an incredibly good month for us. We made tons of progress, and if you've seen it in a while, the second floor is mostly drywalled. I think all of the classroom wings are drywalled. The east side is mostly finished, the east and north side, and then our mock-up room, so you can see what the first learning studio is going to look like. The walls are painted, the flooring's in, the ceiling's in, at least the tile might not be dropped, but it's pretty cool. The glass is in, and so really soon we'll be able to walk that space and get a feel and make sure it's what we all had in mind. So that's cool. And then our progression is, again, just a reminder, second floor down. So first floor is trailing right behind. The second floor still open. All of the all studs and everything's exposed, so you can see all of the infrastructure that goes in there, all the conduit wiring, plumbing, things like that are in there. And so, upcoming work next month, you'll start to see the first floor kind of catch up. Second floor is going to be full steam ahead. By the next meeting, we may even see like painting starting, which would be really incredible. A couple of more major milestones that you'll see next month are after the 21st, we're going to take over the high school gym. And so, yeah, we're going to have new flooring and a new weight room area. And we're excited to get in there and start going on that as well. We're also going to start, once we get our framing done on the first floor, those were kind of the focus was the learning center. We're going to move inward. And so hopefully we'll see a lot more activity in the auditorium as well. A couple other big things that have happened over the past month. So the roofing for the high school, that contract was executed, and I'm hearing that orders have been placed and that we're in really good shape to have the roof done this summer, which is a big deal because the market right now is still incredibly just volatile. Insulation, rolled steel, lumber are at all-time highs, and to get that behind us and to hear feedback that we're in good shape for the roofing replacement is really positive as well. So I think that's it. As far as looking a little bit further ahead, we're planning for the site work this summer, so the extension of the Fairview parking lot and the things that we have to do out at Third to make it AD accessible like we did at Stevenson. We're going to start preparing and planning and looking ahead for the busy summer work as well.
One comment / question, it's not really a question, more of a comment for the board. One of the things that is a change to our phasing is this summer, we are going to demo I call it the kindergarten auxiliary building, and build out fully the parking lot that will go there. That was not initially part of the phasing. That is a change. The big reason there is that in absence of doing it this summer, when we would open school next year, 70% of the staff that work here would have to park on the streets. And so this makes the logistics of that a lot easier. It is also, while not the core reason, helpful for the Fairview project and the city work of that going through. So it's a double bonus, if you will.
Yes.
Thank you for working with us on that.
Very welcome.
Can you remind me one more time then, and I should know this.
November 28th. What were you going to say?
No, that was not my question. But, no, when does, not the annex or parking lot, but when will real work on Fairview start to occur?
Sure. It's going to be phased to accommodate that as their time frame to do it over the summer of 23 as well. So this summer, in order to give them the best opportunity for success, they're going to do all of their utility work in Fairview. So there will be impacts to Fairview for this entire summer of 2022. And then after the high school renovation's completed, starting in January of 23, they're going to start building this south side of Fairview, and then summer of 23 will be the north side of Fairview, and then it'll be done by the start of the 23-24 school year.
Okay. All right.
Just from the core team that has met a number of times over the last month, you didn't mention this, but a real great thing about the annex change was at first we thought it would be a very high price tag. Well, at first we thought it would be low, then it came back as a very high price tag, and I really appreciate that, you know, Jay and others as well, but really put their heads together and kind of figured out how to do all this and slashed the price to us. So I think in the end it's a $6,000 impact.
I think.
7,000.
Yeah.
But close.
You were close.
I've rounded
It was
down.
like 7,265 or
Something like that.
I just happened to look at it today.
So even though we're in a very tight budget framework, I think we all thought that was a recommended thing to go ahead with. And you know, after the flurry of things that we had from the previous month of different increases, luckily not much to report on with budget challenges this month.
Or any month thereafter, I'm sure, right?
You're on fire.
Definitely continuing discussions with our architect about some of their design and a lot of changes that we've had and some tough conversations, but we're continuing on with that and kind of monitoring that and working with Doug to hopefully bring that toward a resolution before too long.
We appreciate it and the decisions and conversations that you've had to keep us going and keep us on schedule, is really important as well. So thank you for that as well, to keep us going.
Yeah, and I know the only other thing I was going to add is, and I think you guys I think emails have gone out to everyone about this, but I know there was this wall, the visioning sessions that have been happening with the community in student groups too, right? And so that's moving along. So won't be blank white.
Good memory.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Well, any other questions for Jay?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. So we do have on the agenda one recommendation for approval, which is the Perkins and Will Master Planning Contract. This is for the planning work related to the athletic fields, and which has been negotiated, and that was included in the packet. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion on the contract?
So, Mr. Bodie, the only thing that I would add is that this resolution gives Andy the authority to finalize that contract, and there's some last-minute tweaking between our attorneys who draft the contract and Perkins and Will. So the draft that is in your packet tonight is not going to be the final version, but it's really close. So this resolution was written so that we are able to finalize that under the stipulation of the budget amount that is noted. So there's just a little bit of fine-tuning of some language.
Thank you for that clarification, Beth.
I have a question. So just so I'm clear, what's being drafted would be for consideration down the road when the conversation around the athletic complex is to happen.
Yeah, can I take this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was interestingly going to say the following, but I think it speaks right to your question.
Great.
I think importantly for the board, but everyone, well, pretty much everybody left. the community,
For Dot.
the community to understand the public. So this is a master plan. This contract is a master planning process to engage user groups, so coaches, staff, administration, booster groups, parent groups, to create a good, better, best vision and a design of a master plan for what I call the K-12 athletic complex, and parallel the good, better, best with cost estimates aggregately for each of the plans.
Gotcha.
There will be iterative community meetings where there'll be opportunities to say, hey, we could go this direction or that direction. I'll give you an example. The elephant in the room is the architects analyzed that, and we met with them as part of hiring Perkins and Will to do the master plan for this. We interviewed 3 architectural firms. All of them said, what are you going to do with the current home stadium stands? Like, that's a big decision point. So there will be community meetings, for example, that will maybe share the pros and cons of keeping it, the pros and cons of building a new stands with new locker rooms and concession stands, et cetera, under it, bathrooms under it. So there's pros and cons there. So which direction do you want to go? That's one example about what might be discussed at one of the community meetings. I think importantly, there is, this isn't a desire to, at this point, say we're going to be on the ballot November 2024. Right now we want a plan with options for consideration. And one of the other challenges and core rationales for our wanting to do this is that in the absence of a plan, it's hard to spend money for even modest improvements because you begin to worry about spending money backwards.
Right. Gotcha. So this will be the same process that was taken for the new building for the school?
Yeah, I think it will. Yes, it might not be as big and grand,
Okay.
but yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? All right. Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Now, my favorite part of the agenda, business and finance.
No offense, Andy.
Eric.
I'm a money guy.
You sidestep the children.
Okay. So I wanted to start out with some highlights from the end of February. Looking at our general fund, we've gotten close to $7 million in tax advances. I mentioned last month that we request those advances. There's multiple advances over the several month period that the county auditor collects those taxes. So by this time next this time next month, when I do an update through March, we should have a final number for the final settlement. So at this point, with those advances, we're at about 91% of our budget for the fiscal year. State funding is about 80.3. That's a little bit off, I mentioned, because of the implementation of the new funding model in January. So there were some catch-ups and so that percentage seems a little bit off for where we are, but it's going to normalize as we continue to go through the fiscal year. So interest for the month, just over $14,000 for our general fund. Our expenditures are at about 64% of our fiscal year budget, and we are about 66% of the way through the year. So we're just a little bit under budget, which is good news. And our investments that we have in our general fund have a weighted average yield of just a little over 1%. Permanent Improvement Fund, really the only update here, our fund balance has increased a little bit because of those same tax advances. So about $241,000 we have received in our Permanent Improvement Fund. Construction Fund, we had about $11,500 in interest for the month, and we're just about to $1.7 million in interest earnings, net of those fees. So we do have, we have a little bit of time left to try to maximize our interest earnings as we wind this project down. Soft costs, we've spent about 73% of our budget, and construction costs, we've spent about 69%. So we're just over 18 million left in that out of that $55 million budget. And the investments that are remaining in that fund are about 1.72%. And then the last slide here is just the only update really here is the interest we received for the month in terms of our facility funding sources. And now I want to kind of switch gears and just give a quick update to all of you on some updated revenue projections that we received for 2022. So just a quick snapshot, some background, just so that we're all kind of, starting with the same information here. If you remember back when we had the facility levy on the ballot in 2018, we really made an effort to try to minimize the cost impact to residents. And so that manifested into a renegotiated Grandview Yard revenue agreement. And basically what that did was it simplified the structure, that payment structure, and it increased our funding to a flat 45%. So you guys will also remember right before that levy was on the ballot, I think a month before, the board at the time passed a resolution saying that if the levy passed and if that negotiation was successful in increasing the revenue, then the board would earmark some of that revenue to reduce the bond millage that we needed to collect from residents. So that was really the main focus of renegotiating that. So the bond millage model, when we issued the bonds in June of 2019, was really structured completely around this new revenue model and this new revenue source that we had, this increased revenue. So it's really, really important that we monitor the projections closely because our bond levy is structured around that. And so each year we contract with Baker Tilly They're the municipal advisory firm that helped us structure that bond issue, and they have updated the projections for '22 a little bit earlier than what we have the past couple years. And they shared those. They joined our last finance committee meeting on February 28th and shared those. So I wanted to give just a quick snapshot of what changed. So again, this just kind of in a picture format just kind of shows that flow of money. So we get that 45% of the pilots or the payments in lieu of tax that goes into our general fund, and then there's kind of three buckets. The first is the operating revenue that we rely on. That was the money that was in place before we ever renegotiated that agreement. So it's kind of the base revenue, if you will. The second bucket is the money that was earmarked or set aside to help with that bond repayment. And you can see that money flows into our general fund, but then in April, so next month, you will see on the agenda a recommendation to transfer the amount for this year into a set-aside account, and then you'll also see a transfer out of that set-aside into the debt service fund to make this year's payment. So just kind of showing the flow there. And then part of that renegotiation was kind of an other bucket, and that was some revenue that we asked for to have in case we had increases in enrollment and had additional operating expenses and or some additional facility expenses. So with that renegotiation, there was going to be some more residential development, and so our concern was, we want to be prepared if we got more students from that. So that's kind of a representation of kind of how that flows. And then looking at the actual numbers, this chart is kind of set up just like the picture in the previous slide. Column A is that total 45% that we get in, and I show at the top A equals B plus C plus D. So that B, C, and D are those three buckets, and it just shows the updated projections by year. So most importantly, if you look at the far right column, you'll see the increase over last year's projections. And there are a number of reasons why those revenue projections change year to year and kind of get fine-tuned. So looking at our 22 projections, over the remaining life of that TIF, we're expecting a little over 8 million more than what the projections showed last year. And again, there are so many factors that go into those revenue projections. We try to be conservative on those. There are abatements, there are tax exemptions. There's a parking garage, for example, that Baker Tilly talked to us about that is exempt from tax. And sometimes there are retroactive adjustments before that tax exemption is approved. There are a lot of assumptions about when the development is going to completely build out. And so as we as time goes on and there's less uncertainty, we can kind of hone in on those projections and they're going to increase a little bit. So anyway, that's good news, again, about 8.6 more over the remaining life of the TIF. So anyway, I wanted to share that good news. And again, the Finance Committee heard directly from Baker Tilly and got a good explanation on that. And so that is all I have on that.
I just want to recognize thank you for the synopsis there and the reminder of everything, and just the hugely key role that the city played with getting us there. I mean, it's Grandview Yard, but really it was the city in control of that agreement and taking some of the revenue that would have otherwise come to them and saying we want to make sure that we're watching out for the school district. So great example of a partnership here between the city and the school, and we don't forget that.
Would you like an update from the Finance Committee?
Absolutely.
All right.
The newly constituted Finance Committee.
Instead of Eric and myself, it's now Molly. So she's loving it. I'll speak for her.
For one meeting, it's great.
There's not, a ton more to add over what Beth has already said. I mean, obviously, we talked about the revenue projections for the Grandview year that she just talked about. The construction budget, which we kind of already covered with the core, which, I mean, the big part of that is that there's not a whole lot new, which is good in this case, because it means there was, no major change orders or anything of the sort. We always take a look at the kids club budget because that's been an area of concern of recent. But if you recall, we did vote to change the rates charged for kids club. And so this last January, the January still showed that expenditures were exceeding revenue, but you believe that this month, or February, I guess it would be, is going to be the month that we really see a big turnaround.
And we actually did. So January still had there were some credit balances, I think, from over winter break that parents used in January. And so I know Amy Gardner, our Kids Club director, wanted to get all of those taken care of. And then moving forward, we did expect that was going to, we were going to bring in revenue covering our expenses. And when we just closed our books for February, that was the case. So that's good news. That's what we expected, and that's what we saw. So
good news, because it was really interesting to look. If you looked at the ending cash balance for each month, you looked prior to COVID to now, our cash balance is about 1/10 of what it was 2 years ago. So it really dropped very dramatically over the past 2 years. We talked about the property valuation appeals. And what's most interesting there, if you've seen emails from OSBA, if you notice the House Bill 126 that would limit school districts' ability to appeal for these property value appeals, it's kind of at a standstill right now. The House did not concur with Senate amendments, so it's going to go to a conference committee. I don't know what the expected outcome from that will be, but at the moment, that's where that stands. And then, insurance. I know that Beth has talked about this, that there was the new insurance rates, that was a really, really positive outcome, is that it's a 4% increase, which is far below what it was feared to be, just a couple months ago. Yeah. So that was really, really good news. And then, I don't know, you had mentioned you were going to say something about this. It wasn't specific to Finance Committee, but it's certainly finance related, is this AEP substation possibility in Marble Cliff. Did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so
we're pulling him back into the Finance Committee for the moment.
Yeah. I'll put on my hat as liaison to Marble Cliff Council here. So last Monday, just this week, there was an open house. It's the second open house they've had on this thing that's been probably 2 years, I think, at least in the making, which is AEP, which currently has an electrical substation on 33 just north of Fifth Avenue, that if you turn the corner there and you look on the right, there's, the ugly wires and towers and what have you, but it's kind of tucked in behind a couple of the buildings. So AEP had bought some additional land there and is expanding that. And Marble Cliff had held that up for some time for a series of reasons, but partly it was the aesthetic and what was there, and is that really the right place to put it and all that. So after a lot of negotiation, I think, and talk back and forth, AEP has really come back with a better proposal that involves a lot of screening. So a pretty nice looking, actually, brick kind of fence, if you will, around. So as you're driving past, you don't see all the ugly towers, not totally hidden, but also doing some landscaping. So that was a big piece of it. And actually some side things like better electrical service for most of Marble Cliff and Grandview is in the area that'll be served by them. But then also has some tax implications. And so that's one thing that at the open house I was able to talk some about, and Mayor Matt Cincione was following up on that. And so we've had some conversation between Beth and Stephanie Evans, who is the admin person now for, former board member here, and now is the admin person for Marble Cliff. And then Emily and I met with Andy and Beth to do some planning for kind of next steps to try and figure out. So essentially what happens with the changing of property there, that some of the commercial property, which is a big revenue generator for Marble Cliff with the income tax, because there are a lot of people who have worked there and then, they pay a portion of that income tax. That will go away because there's basically nobody working at a substation. But in its place comes this pretty major investment that would be taxed at a utility property rate, which is different than residential rate and different than commercial rate. So it's, and also different valuation, the methodology and how that changes over time. So they gave us some preliminary figures, but definitely not anything that's net. It was sort of like, this is a piece that would increase, but we also are very interested in, well, this is increasing, but this is decreasing, and so, just trying to understand all the net of all that. So definitely don't feel comfortable talking about numbers at this point. But just to say, it is some additional revenue that likely will come our way that, at least in my mind, I think of some great possibilities for the contract we just approved with athletic facilities, as well as other future capital needs that we have, especially with Stevenson. So hopefully, I see something here as hopefully getting some really good revenue for us to put toward one or both of those projects. So just wanted to update the board on where that stands with the process. And, obviously we're going to continue to monitor it and update as we know more.
Yep, so I assume that the finance committee will, keep an eye on that too. And like Eric said, there's still a lot of questions. Like when we talked about it last, I felt like I have more questions than answers right now, but in time.
And just to put it on the table too, I think, interesting that we're just talking about the agreement here with the Grandview Yard, which did include some really creative thinking around the city and the school and the taxes and how we came into an agreement with them. Marble Cliff has started a conversation around a partnership between the village and the school, looking at the tax flow, and we expect that they'll be proposing something. So more to come on that, but I think we at least owe it to them to listen and react to that once we know more about the facts and the total revenue and everything else. Is there anything more that the committee had?
I don't think so.
All right. There are recommendations for approval under 9C, 1 through 11. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. A lot of these things we see annually. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding, like, what is just sort of a typical thing that happens every year and what's new or different. Number 8, this Bowling Green MOU. Is that something that is, that is yearly? Is this something that, or every 3 years, I guess?
Yeah, so my sense is that has to do with student teachers.
Yeah.
And so not only with Bowling Green, but anyone that we have student teachers, there's always a contract. And so we update that. I mean, and again, same with Eagles Wings.
Yeah, I remember that one from a prior year. But but so yeah, these just it's just a standard student teacher, because I did look at it and I saw it was about student teaching. It's nothing out of the
very
norm.
typical, very standard.
All right.
Is there a what's the word I'm looking for? An approach that we have of what we most want with student teachers, where we say, this is who we want to work with most, or this is better, or we want to spread it out, or is it just more reactive to whoever comes knocking on our door?
Before Angie speaks, which I think is great, I'll just say a couple things. One, I do think it's good to have a relationship with the university, because can be mutually beneficial. In other words, for example, Ohio State. If you have a relationship with Ohio State, you can place more teachers. You can also, over the years, better understand what their core intended outcomes are. In other words, what their portrait of a graduate is. And then work together to ensure that your values around assessment, around grading practices, around pedagogy are similar. So I do think there's value in that. I also think there can be reciprocity relative to, I got my master's because I always took a student teacher and I was able, as a result, to get fee waivers. Now, they've kind of moved away from that, but there still is some of that. And so that's also a benefit for your district, because then your staff is able to go invest in themselves through education and higher education, get better at their craft, and they're not paying money out of their pocket. So those are a couple things that come to my mind, but.
And I was really going to say exactly what you said.
I see.
And Bowling Green has sought us out because of the relationship and the music program we have here. And then Findlay University, Jolie is a professor for them. And so they seek us out because of her. So, and it does give us the opportunity to kind of shape we don't have a huge impact, but we do get some say in how their programs and education work. And I do think Ohio State changed their program due to feedback from public schools saying graduating students with a master's degree is silliness. And you're one of the only universities in the area. You need to go back to a 4-year degree. And also some of the programming in the elementary level, they've added phonics pieces that weren't there before. So you do have an ability to make an impact on the university as well.
I needed you like 20 years ago to tell them that. Sorry. I'm just saying.
It's been moved and seconded. Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt? Aye. Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye.
Next on the agenda, we have personnel, item 10A1 through 16, as Andy noted. Part of that is to approve the contract with Robert Brown, so very happy to be voting on that tonight. Do I have a motion?
I have a question. I asked Kevin this earlier, and I'm noticing it under the supplemental contracts. And we can take this offline if I'm opening a big can of worms. But I noticed that there's some parents who are applying to be coaches of school-sanctioned teams. And granted, my history is just with parents being volunteer coaches, but I share similar concerns for parents who want to coach their kids in a school level. So is the policy that we don't stop that, or does anybody else share those concerns, or am I being overly concerned?
There is, tell me if I'm wrong here, in various, our labor agreement, that I think it has to be offered to GHEA first. And then it has to be offered, or there has to be a part of it.
A preference.
And there's a preference given to GHEA members.
So teachers who work here?
Oh, educators, yeah.
Educators, okay.
And then if that's not if there's not a qualified candidate, or there's not a best candidate, it can go to outside. That's a real quick snapshot.
Yeah, yes, generally, I think, so there is nothing in our CBA or in policy that would prevent R from hiring a community member who's qualified to serve as a coach if their son or daughter was on the team.
Okay, that was my
So
question.
officially, that doesn't exist.
Okay.
So I do think your point, having 3 sons and, coaching baseball and travel baseball, travel basketball, even that as a volunteer of my own sons presents challenges. And uniquely, currently, there are coaches, it's challenging, and it presents. So But to answer your question, there is no policy that prevents that. I do think, so my reaction though is, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not aware of even who you're referencing, but what I will do is make a note, and I'll have Rob talk to Brad, and just to reinforce the delicacy of that. I mean, at the end of the day, one of the things I used to say is when Jim Tressel was the Ohio State football coach, I used to say, if Jim Tressel's son was on the Grandview Bobcats football team and he became our coach, I guarantee you there are going to be parents in that stand saying his son's getting preferential treatment and his coach doesn't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. That's just human nature.
Right.
And that's really at the heart of your question,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so what's important in my mind is that there is an awareness and a sensitivity of the coach who is in that position.
Yeah.
And it is, the only other thing I'll add to this, sorry, I got on. You kind of
Struck
hit
a nerve.
You may have hit a nerve. The only other thing I'll say is, it can also put their son or their daughter in a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
Because that student athlete is going to be under a microscope.
Yeah.
And so not only the coach, but the coach understanding that.
Right.
And it's a really hard thing.
Yeah.
Really, really hard thing.
I wonder if for future, depending on how things go, and this is not directed towards any one person. I think everybody is qualified and would do a great
Yeah.
job. I do think, though, in the years when their kids are playing, it makes it pretty precarious, and it's for both parties.
Yeah.
Something that I just think we should pay attention to. So.
Yeah, it's, right, fair enough.
Do we ever have, given the size of our district and what we pay perhaps, do you think we would have trouble sometimes getting coaches for sports if we didn't allow parents to step up? Sometimes?
Yeah, so I think we have trouble now.
Yeah.
I think it's a continual challenge. And by the way, this happens all over everywhere in every school district across the nation. Just for example, I'll pick on Ray Corbett. Ray's son, now he's been here and I love him, but he's been here for forever, right? But Ray's son played basketball here. That was probably 18 years ago. But I share that with you only to say, it does happen. Yeah. I think that agility and flexibility is greater as an organization at, say, 7th grade than it is as a coach is say, a varsity football coach or a varsity girls basketball coach.
Sure.
And especially for a varsity coach that has been there a long time, all of a sudden to say, hey, I know your son's going to be a junior and playing varsity basketball and you've coached here for 20 years, but guess. So, I think your point about awareness and being intentional about those conversations for the coach with the community and parents, but also for the student athlete.
Yeah, thank you.
And just to make sure, so all of these would be positions that were identified as we need a position, offered or thought about with current staff, and then if can't find someone who's an educator, advertising and looking at people.
Yeah, so maybe said differently, for every coaching position, contractually, we have to post, interview, and hire. And, we do follow a process, and, that's typically run through the athletic department. And depending upon the level, a principal may be involved in a final interview. And typically, those would include, additional staff and/or parents, booster groups.
To pick the most qualified candidate.
But importantly, there is a process.
Yeah, thank you.
So amazingly, I don't think we've been moved and seconded yet.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Now, do we have any discussion on personnel
We're good
matters?
now.
No, I have one more. It's similar to my last question. Just like, is this standard language or not? Number 9, classified substitute hourly pay rates, 95% of step 1. Is that just standard language that's being continued? Okay.
Yes.
That's what I figured. I just wanted to.
Yeah. I do want to make a comment. You know, this board approved making Christina Brannon, our HR coordinator, full-time. And I am just going to tell you, I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but I want to say publicly, she has been transformational to our organization. And in particular, and in a pronounced way during COVID, where staffing shortages in really all areas, and in substitutes, and in secretaries, and kitchen workers, and custodial maintainers, she has been transformational. So it's a long-winded compliment to her, but also a thank you to the board for providing the resources to make that position full-time. It has been transformational.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Number 11, curriculum and instruction. Do I have a motion?
So moved, and we did not have a meeting, so to report for a teaching and learning committee report, we didn't have a meeting.
That's a very short report. Thank you.
So did you
I did
make a
move.
motion?
I did
Okay,
move.
second.
Any discussion? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Rob, there was discussion about this trip to New York not happening. Can you give us an update?
I will have there's we're having some chaperone issues, and so I'll have an update tomorrow. We're looking at Plan B, C, D, E, and F. It's just it's difficult to get someone to drive the van to New York City for 5 days, frankly.
That's fair.
But we're trying. We have a few things in the works, and I'd have a better update tomorrow.
Fair enough.
Does it have to be some sort of third-party event, like transportation, or as opposed to parents, or is it just?
Emily would like to drive the van.
I would.
It's a volunteer. We would need someone who is background checked, of course, and who has a van license. But we're looking at all options right now. But if
Yeah,
if people are
you didn't need to
volunteering,
get
I'll
into
write it.
specific, but thank you. I just was, before I forgot, I'll wait for your update tomorrow.
One of the highlights of my high school was going to New York City for a Model UN conference, so I hope that all works out.
Of course it was.
Of course it was.
Are you surprised?
I learned
by
more
that?
and
No, I'm
more
not.
about you, Eric.
You did math along the way.
Yeah. Did you have a spreadsheet with all of your?
Did his math homework in the van on the way to New York.
Whatever.
Uh,
Do you know where we're at in the agenda?
We are on number 12.
Did we go around and call I?
Actually, I think
All
we
right,
need
that's
a
what's-
motion for a 12, A1 through 3.
So moved.
I didn't know where we were.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Any more?
We're already there.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye. That's what I was asking about.
We did.
Ele-
That was
yeah,
good,
11,
because Kevin
yes.
made the motion and I seconded,
Yep.
and then he mentioned that they hadn't met, that you guys hadn't
I
met.
don't think,
Did we ever vote on it?
I don't think we voted
Maybe we
on
didn't
B,
vote.
was what I was asking you.
We
Beth?
did.
I thought we did.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just so
Haley,
efficient about it.
You and me.
So
We
We
just
were on the same page.
slid right there.
You want to adjourn this?
Is there any other thing in the other agenda? Yes.
I just
Katie.
want to make a comment. Please pass along to the theater staff that the Putnam County 25th Annual Spelling Bee was fantastic. They did an excellent job. I heard that Saturday night was sold out. And I I'm looking at Rob Brown, who was brought in as a volunteer, like in the spelling
Yes,
bee.
it was great.
I mean,
Is there video of that?
It was
Oh
awesome.
my gosh.
And Carl Acton did too.
And Carl Acton, I mean, you guys just go above and beyond for your students. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm done by Friday night. So the fact that you even volunteered just shows your commitment to the kids. So it was really well done. So I know I recognize it was state championship for the soccer, but maybe at future meetings we could recognize our cast or the director, because they really do an excellent job.
And Carrie is special. I don't know how else to say it. Like, he has the it factor.
Yeah, he was
just,
great.
I mean, you know how you meet people and you're like, this guy has the it factor for what he's doing. He, in my humble opinion, is the real deal.
Yeah, it was great. So please pass that along.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Katie.
can I just say, the Quint and Angie and the team, the presentation, those students, that was the highlight of my month. They were spectacular and authentic and genuine and energized and passionate and articulate, and they did a fabulous job. So make sure to tell them that.
No notes.
No notes. Yeah, that was astounding.
We're great.
They all were outstanding. I will say, I almost said to that Gus,
Gus.
Yeah.
why don't you just sit here?
Yeah, I was like, Gus is coming for your job.
Yeah, why don't you just have a seat? I'll go sit in the audience.
I think when
I mean,
he
he is,
bowed,
that
was-
kid,
I mean, it's like, yes.
that kid is, he's got an it factor.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
And your son did an unbelievable job as
Thank
well.
you. He got nervous.
Yeah.
He did a great, what a great experience.
Oh,
He
yeah,
did a
yeah.
great job.
He's
And that Liv also.
Oh, Emmy, I want to just capture
Or
Emmy's
the
voice
Emmy?
and just
Sorry.
make it like my alarm clock in the morning.
They,
So cute.
They
It
were
is so cute.
They were excited about it for the week, and
Yes.
it's been a highlight where they were like, Ben came home and he's like, "Mom, I'm talking to the board," and I'm like, "What about?" And it's like, and they were all sneaking out, so I didn't want to have it go. But I'm like, Mrs. Jump and Mrs. Fields worked with them, time in and time out, and the management, and just they empowered our kids to talk about what the kids do in their day, and I'm like, you let our kids shine,
Yeah.
and they're not here, so they're not.
Yeah,
gonna hear
and
about
they're
it.
not here to. I know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say all those little things they're talking about, like we video and genially and stuff. Like my kids come home and do that for fun at
They
home.
do.
Like that shows you
Oh.
like it's learning is fun, and they use it. They bring their
they get-
Chromebooks home and they do it
they
at home
get
for
on
fun.
Google
And there's the
Hangouts.
magic.
Yeah.
They get on Google Hangout and work on things. There was something where they were. No, I'm gonna just wrap it up right here.
Well, but also, Jessica and Christy have the it factor as well. I mean, they have the intellectual knowledge and skills to facilitate and lead that kind of learning opportunities for kids. And the relational ability, they're fabulous.
Indeed.
We will end on fabulous.
Yes, we should.
We will not be going into executive session. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt? Aye. Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye. Good job, Mr. President.
Thank you.